안녕하세요. 저는 배우이자 화가 활동을 하고 있는 박기웅입니다. 저는 오늘 굉장히 특별한 서울의 랜드마크에 와서 특별한 손님을 여러분들께 소개해 드리고자 합니다. 자, 스테판 작가님 만나 뵙게 돼서 반갑습니다.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
네. 자, 작가님 이 영상을 보실 많은 분들께 작가님 인사 한 말씀 좀 부탁드리겠습니다.
Well, I'm extremely happy to be in Korea, to be speaking to such a famous person, and very, very pleased with the fact that we are allowed to show our latest work from the past couple of years.
자, 작가님께서 제가 듣기로 입국하신 지가 얼마 안 되셨다고 들었습니다. 지금 굉장히 짧은 기간 동안 바쁜 일정을 소화하고 계신데 한국에 오랜만에 와보신 소감을 좀 여쭤보고 싶어요.
Yes, this is, I think, already the third exhibition that we've had in Seoul. Unusual because, you know, we've never had an exhibition in Thailand, never had one in Indonesia or Malaysia. Yes, while of course the studio is busy, this has been a very, very special event for us. I think for our theme of, you know, now is better. I'm sure that from an insider view, there's also plenty of problems in Korea, but from an outsider perspective, there is just some real big milestones that happened. So I think it lent itself to this theme very, very well.
자, 이번에 이곳 DDP, 서울 그리고 한국의 랜드마크에 오신 특별한 이유가 있다고 들었는데 그 이유를 여쭤보고 싶습니다.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's a total pleasure to have the exhibition here at DDP. Specifically, very unusually, we are able to do the outdoor and the indoor exhibition. Outdoor, we have this kind of gigantic flow chart of 120 blowers. You know, these silly little things that we know from the gas stations that show the incredible development of longevity within Korea over the past 120 years, from when it was somewhere in the 20s to now where it's in the mid-80s and is really a world record of longevity.
자, 그러니까 말씀 주신 대로 한국인의 기대수명을 굉장히 은유적으로 표현을 해주신 것 같아요. 그러한 게 보통 이제 제목에도 이제 말씀하시고자 하는 바가 반영이 되는데 삶은 그 어떤 경우에도 죽음보다 아름답다. We'd rather be alive than dead 라는 제목이 굉장히 저는 심오하게 다가왔거든요. 그러니까 이제 삶을 돌아보고 내 삶이 아름다운가? 혹은 뭐 나 잘 살고 있나? 이런 생각이 좀 들게 만들었던 것 같아요. 작가님은 저런 질문을 던지심과 동시에 본인 스스로도 계속해서 끊임없이 노력을 하고 계신지가 좀 궁금합니다.
So I would say I don't really try to make myself happy. Because I've now, over the past years, really looked at a lot of long-term media, I think that my overall mood is better. Because I still do consume short-term media, but I try to do it very limited. For example, I'm not on Twitter or X at all anymore. I still do read daily news, but I'm thinking of stopping it. Because I find that even if I just read a weekly magazine, it already has more positivity in there than the daily one, and the daily one has more positivity than the hourly Twitter. And so I actually believe that I would be better off reading about a certain subject, a book once or twice a year on that subject. I would be better informed with a more overall understanding than reading about that same subject on an hourly basis with all its up and downs and all of its, you know, scandals and catastrophes.
자, 요거는 제가 굉장히 개인적으로 좀 여쭤보고 싶었던 건데 저 같은 경우는 이제 배우로서 짧지 않은 시간을 살아오고 그 다음에 지금은 화가로서의 삶을 살고 있단 말이죠. 그러다 보니까 좋은 작업을 하고 싶어서 제가 지난 20년 동안 프로페셔널 배우로서 활동했던 그 어떤 것들을 녹여서 작품에 표현을 하고 있단 말이죠. 작가님이 이번 전시뿐 아니라 이때까지 작업들을 하면서 본인의 어떤 진정성을 녹여내기 위해서 어떤 포인트를 잡고서 접근하시는지가 좀 궁금합니다.
But I think in that case, we're almost on a similar path. You know, I've been a designer for a very long time. I probably designed my first things that were printed when I was 15, and I'm now 61, so it's been a long period of being involved in that. I think as I got older, it got more important to me to make particular points, because I discovered that design, specifically communication design, really is its own language, and you can express much more with it than just selling things. I have nothing against selling things, but most design studios around the world use it to promote things, which is fine. And I felt that considering I now know how to speak this language, I should also employ it to say something that I find important. But of course, very much like in your case, all of the things I've learned in the past 40 years of being a designer are now flowing into this project.
이 장소가 굉장히 일반적인 전시장보다는 많은 분들이 오가기도 하지만 좀 독특한 어떤 구조를 띠고 있는 부분도 있단 말이죠. 바깥에 이제 설치 작업을 하신 잔디 마당 쪽도 그렇고 좀 더 주의 깊게 기획하시고 또 어떤 영감을 받으셨다거나 그런 부분이 있는지가 좀 궁금합니다.
Well, I think that the wonderful thing was that we actually had a choice where to put our outdoor exhibition. There were a good number of pieces around DDP in this neighborhood available, and I think it became clear to me quite quickly that we would like to use the courtyard because on the one hand our dancers are already so unbelievably animated that I thought it would work best in a very quiet courtyard as opposed to out on the street where you would expect these kind of things more normally. So I definitely wanted to have a very quiet background for it, and plus there was a big advantage because you could actually see them from inside the gallery, so it just made a lot of sense to have that inside-outside connection, specifically because I'm just a big friend of contrast, and I felt that these sort of nutty things outside would work really well with the historic paintings as another piece of contrast.
우리가 바깥쪽에 그 잔디 언덕에 설치된 작품 얘기를 좀 많이 나눴는데 사실 그 작품 이외에 이곳 잔디사랑방에도 굉장히 다양한 작품들이 있는데요. 소개를 좀 부탁드려도 될까요?
So on the inside we have different sections. There is, the outside walls of this big block here basically show here all the paintings, the historical paintings with all the inserts, really chosen because 200-year-old data just makes sense to be on 200-year-old paintings. On the other side, there are pieces that only shorter-term data was available on these lenticular prints, these prints that kind of change as you walk by them. And then inside of this little gallery we put up, we have different products, glasses, also long-term lasting glasses by a company in Vienna called Lobmeier that has already been around for hundreds of years. But also some of the clothing items and all of the specific edition prints we made for Seoul with Korean data. We have a couple of video pieces all around, some explanatory, some purely visual. Ultimately, every single one of these various examples of media goes into the same direction of long-term thinking.
말씀 중에 서울 에디션 말씀을 해주셨어요. 굉장히 새로운 작품들일 것 같은데 그 부분에 대해서 조금 더 설명을 부탁드리고 싶어요. 그러니까 서울과 도대체 어떠한 연결점으로 특별한 스페셜 에디션을 준비하셨는지가 좀 궁금합니다.
Well, it was very clear, both from the organizers but also from myself, that we don't just want to talk about data about the world in general, but also very specific about things going on in Korea. I looked at data, they sent me data. Basically, ultimately, I chose things that just come from different areas. So a couple of things that are very basic, like, you know, food self-sufficiencies or the yield of rice. And then a couple of things that are extremely specific, or even specific to this exhibition, like visitor numbers to DDP over the past 15 years and how they developed. At the same time, I didn't want to use something that is foreign to me, as in, you know, where I use a technique of a culture that's not really mine. So ultimately we settled on silkscreen, which just made the most sense because there is very high quality silkscreen available here, but it's also part of my own heritage. And we created these 6 prints that I think came out beautifully. The colors are exactly how specified. There's very, very rich ink on it. So yeah, I was very happy with how that all went.
앞으로 스테판 작가님의 행보, 어떤 가치를 담아 가실지가 좀 궁금합니다.
Well, I think that for a good while, I'm actually continuing with this project. I don't see any possibility that the media is suddenly going to show long-term ideas. So I think there's going to be no shortage of catastrophic and scandal reporting from regular media. So I think I'm going to have plenty of opportunity to give a little bit of a counterpoint, a carrot to their whip, in order ultimately to give people the possibility to see the short term and the long term, because I think that if we want to tackle the many problems that will need tackling in the future, we will have a much better chance if we also know our positive progress and not just the pointed catastrophes.
자, 마지막으로 이 스테판 작가님의 작품이 여기 이곳 DDP에서 내년 3월까지 전시가 진행된다고 합니다. 이 작품을 보러 오시는 한국 관람객 분들 혹은 뭐 아까 전에 말씀 주셨듯이 여기저기 다니시다가 오는 분들께 작가님의 작품이 어떤 작품으로 기억되기를 바라는지가 좀 궁금해요.
So yeah, I think that in an ideal way, I would love for the audience to consider the long term more, maybe even consider changing daily habits of looking more at long-term media, you know, switching from the daily newspaper to a weekly magazine or to something that is monthly, because I found that the longer the term, the more positive the news. And like I myself am convinced that I actually will be better informed if I read a book about a certain subject every year, rather than following that subject on an hourly or daily basis, which then will mostly be informed by the negative parts of it.
자, 짧은 시간이었지만 이 스테판 사그마이스터 작가님과 이 전시와 또 전시에 관련된 작품들에 관한 얘기를 나눠볼 수 있었습니다. 저 역시도 이 공간에서 굉장히 많은 영감을 받고 갑니다. 자, 스테판 작가님 자리를 빛내주셔서 정말 감사드리고 정말 마지막으로 한국 관람객 분들께 마지막 인사를 남겨주시면 좋을 것 같습니다.
It's a pleasure to be here in Seoul. If I would have to give a tip, I would say do consider looking at the world from the long term. I can guarantee it will be good for you.
자, 그럼 지금까지 저는 박기웅이었고요. 스테판 사그마이스터 작가님이었습니다. 여러분 감사합니다.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.